Hello, everybody, and welcome to the APE AP English Language and Composition Podcast. I'm Eric Kallenborn, coming from Shepherd High School in Palos Heights, Illinois. And today, as I mentioned at the end of our last podcast, we are going to be visiting some students that are taking a part in Socratic seminars that are discussing the 2011 synthesis essay, which is the Locavore movement. So if you're not familiar with how a Socratic seminar works, how it is there are 6 desks arranged in a mini circle with the rest of the desks in the classroom kind of circling all of those. 5 students sit in those desks and lead a discussion about whatever the topic may be, leading questions on the board. In this case, it was something that they prepared for homework. And there is a 6th seat called the hot seat, where any student from the outside can come in, hop in, ask a question, add to the conversation, and then get out. They generally have about 15 seconds in the hot seat. So the conversations you're going to hear today come from my classes and Mr. Jeff Vazana's classes, and I'll introduce each of them. The first one you are going to hear today is from my first period, and the students that are featured here are Bree, Abby, Kyle, Leanna, and Aubrey. So here they are discussing part of the 2011 synthesis essay about the Locavore movement.
All right.
I know who we are. All right. Okay. So we've already discussed the prompt, so we know everybody understands kind of the basis. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's go on to source A, and let's talk about that.
Okay, well, I immediately said that source A was pro the Locavore movement,
Definitely.
right off the bat, because it's giving certain points. Some are stronger, for example, eating local means more for the local economy and then it gives it makes it credible by using this new economics foundation said that $1 spent locally generates twice as much income for the local economy. Mm-hmm. But then there were some pretty weak ones, local food just plain tastes better, and then it says ever tried a tomato that was picked within 24 hours? Enough said.
Don't say that in your essay that local food just plain tastes better. I really like this packet though, because it almost gives you a bunch of different points. Mm-hmm. It just gives you 10 different points that you could use in your essay, and all you have to do is elaborate on it. And a lot of them have good information behind it, but like I said, or like you said, local food just plain tastes better. That wouldn't. There's nothing behind it. That's just basically opinionative. So you can't use that. But this just lists points that are pro Locavore, if that's the direction that you want to go.
I feel like it did give good points, but even with the buying local food keeps us in touch with the seasons. I think that just is a stupid reason. Why does that matter?
To be able to decipher between the strong good arguments and the weaker, just kind of put in their arguments.
Because people can easily argue against that because that's an opinion.
I think you can even argue against the point that talks about how it's better for you. Mm-hmm. How it's fresher and more nutritional value. But when you look at source B, it directly contradicts that by saying a person making smart choices from the global megamart can easily meet all the body's needs. So if you want to include, I would even just include the statement made in source A, but then say, and this is why it's wrong with source B to show that there's really just as much nutritional value when you eat. When you make smart choices.
And this source is really good because you can take these points and use them as your specific points in your essay, and then relate the other documents back to these specific points, these broader points economics and better air quality, so that would go with environmental implications and things like that. These give you a lot of good points to write off of. Mm-hmm. So it's just using the other documents to support them.
I almost find myself not buying into everything that she's saying, because when you look at who wrote this, it's from a group web blog written by individuals who are interested in the benefits of eating food grown and produced locally, and I feel that greatly detracts away from how much I believe what they're saying. I feel if they had acknowledged some kind of a rebuttal, it would have made me more apt to use this source, because right now the ideas are okay, but I'm not buying it.
That definitely hurts their credibility. Although I think a lot of these, a lot of the rest of the documents support some of the same points that these people hit. These people hit it at a broad, kind of general in a general way, and like a lot of the other documents I think kind of like give like supporting detail to it.
Yeah.
So like maybe if you take like these are good like just kind of general like points that you can make, and then you just need to back it up with detail.
It's kind of like an outline for what your essay could be.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, this one definitely like stuck out a lot to me more because it gives a lot of information. So I just kind of like really like looked into this. So I'm like, oh, this okay, and it just made me like kind of like pro it, like for it.
I think that in like a timed essay situation, this would be a great document to have in front of you because you have just those bolded words. And so I feel like in like the actual AP exam, if you saw a document like this, like if I was writing this essay in the 50 minutes, I would go pro because this outline, this is right here for me. And since I'm not writing it in a time situation, I have more time to elaborate the argument that I really want to make. But I think it makes it really easy to argue that it's better to go for the locavore movement.
All right, we spent like 5 minutes on this, so let's move on to source B. All right, I thought this was pro because it backs up a lot of like nutrition, like how food keeps its nutrition when it doesn't like go over a long like strand of production and like traveling and stuff like that. What do you guys think?
I thought that it was against the locavore movement because if you look in the second paragraph, like the last sentence, it says specifically it's like that doesn't mean it's necessary to eat locally in order to be healthy. So it's saying that you don't necessarily need to be a part of this movement and eat all your food within however much is considered to be locally, like whatever distance. It's just saying that you need to make healthy choices. So, and Leanna mentioned this earlier, contrasting one of the points from Source A, that like if you're making smart choices from the global megamart, you can easily get the same nutrition that you would from buying locally.
Yeah, I thought there were like this could argue like either side, like if you were to pick like specific points, because like even with like where Kyle said like it could be for it, like, but then you have like reasons in here that go like against it, saying that like yes, it's good to eat locally, but you could easily just go to a store and get the same nutrition as if you were to eat locally.
All right, now we're going to move on to Mr. Jeff Vazana's third period, and the students that are leading this Socratic seminar are Monica, Billy, Nikki, John, and Brianna. So let's listen in to their conversation on the locavore movement.
Well, we all read the packet yesterday, didn't we? So I think the first thing we should go over is what points we found out for this, for this essay, so that way once we read through each document, we can further explain those points. So, Billy, what were your overall point for it?
Well, there was a lot of positive points towards locavores and becoming a new thing in this country. Yeah. And the top three ones I found were that through the short distance of they have to travel, that they are more nutritious. The locavore movement also provides jobs to neighborhoods and new communities, and it pollutes the air less because of the reduction in traffic.
What do you think, Nikki?
Well, I think the two main points on the front page are nutrition and sustainability, but throughout the packet it could be argued either way. I thought the political cartoon or whatever it is on the last page was it was different, so it kind of caught my eye. And after reading all the other stuff, it puts it into perspective a little bit that although this is a great thing to do, not everyone has this easy access to it.
The option to it, because look, I mean, the last, it's the cartoon, it's they're in the middle of the Antarctic, so where are you going to get?
Yeah, exactly.
That, and then there's other negative points to there. Did anyone find any negative points for it? Yeah.
In source D, when I was looking at the graph, it shows that a majority of the climate is impacted by the production of each of the foods, not the transportation. So that shows that the locavore movement is not that big of a deal for pollution-wise.
Yeah, in the long run, it's not much of a difference energy-wise if you got food locally or got it from other places.
Mm-hmm. And in addition to it being hard to find for certain people, it's also they kind of failed to realize and failed to acknowledge in these documents that a lot of times food that you could buy at a farmer's market is a little more expensive, and if you want to get not everybody can afford food that is locally grown.
I think that's explained in source C, where it's Whereas remember Source Seed, if you read through it, there was the whole thing between New Zealand lamb and lamb raised in England, and saying that it would hurt the economy of New Zealand because that's a mainstay in their food production, that they make so much money shipping. I mean, I think that's another point that's argued through there is it would take business away from areas around the globe that thrive by exporting food.
Yeah, like some farmers, it does benefit the farmers near you, but no matter what, some farmers are always going to get left out because the people at this end are going to benefit while the other people aren't.
Yeah, I mean, we all eat food. It's just where it comes from is different.
Even with the locavore movement, it just since they're all different farms, they can all have different prices. So everyone might go to one farmer, and that other farmer is still left without making any money.
It brings up a different economy in a different way, and it also there's pros and cons to each side of everything. It's just whether or not it's the individual benefiting or the whole economy itself.
I think once we got, we thought of all the points that, could be possibly made. I'm sure there's more. If anyone can think of it later, you can come up to the hot seat. But I think we should move on to Source A and, figure out what points are from it.
This really defends the locavore.
Yeah, it's really pro-locavore.
It had a lot of straight shot points that are bolded. So, I mean, it clearly states its argument that locavore is a great choice. I mean, it says economy-wise, healthy. It's good for land development and everything else.
I think besides having facts on why the locavore movement is better, it also gives emotion, because where it says buying locally grown foods is fodder for a wonderful story. It talks about the farmer that brings local apples to the market and the baker who bakes his own bread. That kind of gives you pride in your city. Hey, people just like me made this, hardworking Americans.
So it's almost an appeal to your fellow people. Instead of supporting someone 500 miles away, I mean, you're supporting someone local that really needs help.
Mm-hmm. So since this source is primarily pro, what do you think when writing the essay could be your 3 points just from this source?
Definitely use the nutritional value, how it declines when you when it's produced, and then when you do the locavore thing and it's from your town, it has more nutritional value, so it's more healthy for you.
The pollution and air quality one, that one could be argued on here. That could be one of your points from
I think that also goes along with that. The air quality and pollution also goes along with the point where is it? Eating local protects us from bioterrorism. It's just the diseases and everything when you have to transport it. Just stuff isn't.
Mm-hmm. I think. Oh, go ahead.
I'll say for bioterrorism, that might not be that.
It's not the best point, but it goes along with
But it's definitely
it goes along with
about,
contamination. Your food gets contaminated on the truck.
I feel like that was too soft of a word, or too soft of a situation to use terrorism. But.
All right, we're going to move on to Mr. Vazana's 7th period with David, Jessica, Nick, Kyle, and Itzel.
It says, as in Texas grown, for example, or wait, no. Hold on, let me find it.
Yeah. Well, since you're on Source F and you're finding, did you find it?
No, sorry.
Okay, well, while you're finding it, what I pulled, the big thing that I pulled out of Source F was what local is can be extremely different. Local for someone in the Arctic could be 100,000 miles or something like that, or local for somebody in the city could be right down the street.
And the other thing that I got out of that is, example, local, you're also going to be growing different things locally, so you're not going to be able to get let's say you're not going to be able to get corn in the Arctic because you're not going to be growing corn in the Arctic, stuff like that. And going back to a previous point about the economic implication, I don't know, it just reminded me, buy local, it kind of reminded me of how we always see the made in China stuff and how there's always posters for buy American goods and whatnot. It just kind of reminded me of that, it's that but on a smaller scale.
I think this author is trying to also portray a question is what can be defined as local, because it says, well, can you buy local from Walmart and how they're advertising the food that's being sold there.
Yeah, definitely.
Hold on, I found what I was going to say. Can I just say it real fast? It says, that they were talking about how, in Texas, do they consider local to be, the whole state? Or is it, within 50 miles or 100 miles? So, and everywhere you can grow different like produce, so it depends on just where you are as to what's local.
I like what she said there. 1 second. Like, does the food need to be purchased from the producer or from a supermarket that's within 100 miles? What is your consideration of local?
Going back to what Nick said about stuff being made in China, and what I got out of this whole thing is kind of moving back towards that village, self-sustaining kind of life. And then you think about stuff like the Industrial Revolution, where people worked on making everything systematic and making life so much easier, but now they're trying to go back to that small scale kind of, we can all take care of ourselves. So I mean, do you think that says anything about the interests of people?
I think it's like drawing back towards like a more community-centered life, like for example, in AP US history, we were just talking about we finished up like our unit on the colonies and how in the North they wanted a more community-centered life than compared to the South, where they just wanted money. And like if you're talking about what Larry just said, you can tie it back to that and make like alludes to history, and then use your source to power that as well.
On the bottom of source F, it talks about just that, and that the self-sustained community works well in, smaller nations, but as the society becomes more centralized and people move more and more into big cities and less people are working on farms, it becomes harder and harder for those who do remain producing food to be able to locally provide for such large populations.
For sure.
Definitely.
Tying back to what David said about history, I think in source B, the author talks about how she just loves having farmers around and farms and farmland, and I think that kind of ties back to the same time zone, like in the 1920s or when the Great Depression was happening, and how the food began to be faster, and they were beginning to develop like fast food, like in 1948 when McDonald's was starting. They were kind of doing it because it was cheaper food and faster food, and like people didn't have time to sit down and have their food, and so many people kind of didn't want to go back to that, and they want to have more of a home cooked meal with a typical American family dinner, and so they want local food that's like healthier for them and not preservatives.
And like source B, it also says that as long as you go to the store and you buy like what's healthy and like what's good for you, like you don't have to buy like locally grown. So it's kind of like against it, even though she like at the end says that she loves like all the produce and it being like fresh, like she says that you can still be healthy and not have to go out and buy.
She definitely qualifies this argument.
It sounds like a personal opinion to me. You can follow this movement, you can't. I like the movement, but it doesn't seem to me that there's, a solid side. She talks about how it's good, she talks about how it's bad, and says, I like it, but you don't have to follow it. You can if you want.
I agree with you there.
She's just saying you need to make the right choices for you to be healthy and not go out and buy a big bag of chips instead of an apple or something.
Yeah, or like yogurt.
Yeah.
Moving on to source C, major concern was about the transportation of these items and the emissions that the transportation bring. And I found it interesting in the second to last paragraph. It says, but this decision ignores economies of scale. To take an extreme example, a shipper sending a truck with 2,000 apples over 2,000 miles would consume the same amount of fuel per apple as a local farmer who takes a pickup of 50 miles to sell 50 apples. So it's saying, although the transportation is going to be shorter distance-wise, the amount that this farmer is going to be bringing is going to be less, so it's almost the same per
It's proportional
item.
For the size of what you're producing. You're producing less food and you're producing less pollution, but they're still the same amounts if you were to just make it larger scale.
Definitely. And so it just kind of weighs out that decision.
And it kind of is like says, sorry, I just totally cut you off. But it kind of shows that it doesn't matter. Sometimes it's better to have food transported in just because It says, like, but New Zealand lamb is raised on pastures with small carbon footprint, whereas most English lamb is produced under intensive factory-like conditions with a big carbon footprint. Like, in England, like, they don't want to raise lamb because it's not going to be healthy for them, so they'd rather have it transported in and it be healthier than just not healthy.
Yeah. Adding on that and touching back to what Kyle said about kind of locally grown food and the expanding population, if they're traveling 2,000 miles with 2,000 apples and there's 50 miles with 50 apples, regardless, it's still the same amount of people. So whether it's best for the environment or best for people alive, if that makes sense, if they only bring 50 apples, that's even if there's 5 of them, there's not enough for everybody. So you can to what extent can you eat locally where everyone can do it? So you can't. It kind of just proves that there's no one way to do that.
So you're suggesting that we need to find a medium between the locavore thought of keep it directly within 100 miles and the thought of we can just import food from anywhere?
I think also many people think that because it's local, it could be healthier for you, but they don't know, like what the author says, to take a close look at the water usage and fertilizer types and all of that, because even if it's organic or local, you don't know what they could be doing. Like, I was watching the TED Talks documentaries, and they were talking about how supposedly fish could be organic, but they don't know, like, where they're living and the water's dirty.
And finally today, we are going to feature my 8th period with a discussion led by Joe, Liam, Tori, Jocelyn, and Gabby.
100-mile radius, somehow a company can supply for those millions and millions of people, so it would just be impossible when you're surrounded by nothing but cities and buildings, which is a huge problem.
Nikki's going to say an interesting fact about fruit.
I wasn't going to. Now that you say that, I don't want to be in the hot seat.
Oh my god, no. I was just...
No.
What did you say to him?
I said he's probably going to say an interesting fact about fruit.
No, I just wanted to bring out a fact about...
Probably right.
I was going to bring out the fact about how difficult it is to become locavore now that we don't have as many supporters. Because when you go to farmer's market or something, it's only open on specific days, specific times. And when you go out there, it's also really expensive. Well, for like a lot of stuff, like if you, there's just a lot of stuff is more expensive than you would going to like the supermarket, and that's another thing bringing it down. I just wanted to bring up that, even though it helps locally people more.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people can't afford to eat organic because organic stuff is more expensive, and so like the same thing with local food, it's more expensive.
Yeah, but it also has a positive outcome.
Yeah,
and
it
helps the economy, helps farmers. They benefit from it. Plus, like, how things get shipped overseas, and it helps like increase the nutrition value.
It may increase nutritional value, but in source B, they talk about this Marion Nestle person, whatever. One of America's most important critics of dietary policy states that there will be nutritional differences, but they'll only be marginal. So it doesn't seem like it would be that big of a difference.
And they say people are not nutrient deprived.
Yeah.
So like it's not like necessary. Like we can survive with, like we do now, like eating McDonald's and stuff.
Yeah, but it's bad for us.
I know it's bad, but it's like it's not necessary to eat locally in order to be healthy.
I mean, did you see Super Size Me? Yeah. I mean, he was throwing up after a couple weeks. Like, I don't think anyone can.
Yeah, but no one eats McDonald's every day.
Right.
3 meals a day.
Like in real life.
He threw up from deliciousness. Let's be honest, it was just too delicious.
It was too much happiness in that meal.
So, like she just says, it just tastes better. Like, it's not really necessarily nutritionally better, but it tastes better, and that's what you get out of it.
That's also debatable.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't think McDonald's
It's more like her own opinion.
Yeah.
You feel better after you eat it.
I think that we need to look at what the actual benefits of the being a locavore are, because I mean, even if it helps the environment, they're on document, I don't know which one, the graph.
This document D.
It shows that obviously there's not very much difference. It's growing the food, not so much as shipping it, that's having the impact on the economy or the pollution.
Yeah, so the transportation, it barely contributes to the impact on the climate, but the production, because because they're using those big factories and all those chemicals and everything, that's what's ruining it. So it's saying if you do the locally grown stuff, they don't use all those factories and stuff. They just use their own soil and their own everything.
All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast featuring students from all 4 of our sections of AP discussing the 2011 Synthesis Locavore essay. I hope that, your students took something away from this, how to use the sources. I hope you guys embrace the idea of the Socratic Seminar, which is really a good idea. Oftentimes, too, what we'll do is the students that participate well in the Socratic Seminar, we will exempt them from their next essay. We generally, if we do a Socratic Seminar on an essay, we generally do the essay the next day. We do it a lot less second semester to get them prepared for the test, but first semester, it's very much a learning process, and doing something like the Socratic Seminar in a situation like this the day before the essay can really help them kind of begin to understand how to develop their thoughts and ideas and opinions before going into an essay as complex as the synthesis essay. So I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned. Next week we're going to have another awesome, 2 weeks I should say, we're going to have another awesome episode for you. So make sure you subscribe and check out the APE as often as you can, and please spread the word so we get other people enjoying this wonderful podcast as well. Once again, if you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, opinions, please email me and let me know, and we'll talk to you soon.